Hi, today I'm talking about the American actress Thelma Todd, who died in 1935 at the age of 29. Thelma Todd was an American actress who had the nicknames the Ice Cream Blonde and Hot Toddy. She started her career in silent movies, but then successfully won roles in the talkies. She was born in Lawrence, Massachusetts on the 29th of July 1906 to John Shaw Todd and Alice Elizabeth Edwards. He was an upholsterer from Ireland who became an important local figure, serving as a council alderman. Her mother was Canadian. She had an older brother called William, who died in some sort of accident in 1910. Her ambition was to become a school teacher, and so she attended the Lowell Normal School, which is now the University of Massachusetts. Normal is a strange name, but apparently normal schools would instill particular norms in their students. To make money while she was a student, she did some modelling and entered beauty pageants. She was successful and won the titles of Miss Lawrence and Miss Massachusetts in 1925. She caught the attention of a Hollywood talent scout and was offered the chance to attend the Paramount Players School in New York City. This was an acting training school for the studio. According to accounts, her mother encouraged her to give up on the dream of becoming a teacher and instead aim for stardom. So Thelma went to the school and started to find work in the film industry. Here she is at the Paramount Players School. She ended up appearing in about 120 shorts and feature films between 1926 and 1935. In 1929, she signed with the Hal Roach Studios. He put her into comedic roles where she acted with comedy stars Laurel and Hardy, Charlie Chase and Harry Langdon. Another Fine Mess was one of her Laurel and Hardy films. In 1931, Hal tried to create a female version of Laurel and Hardy and so paired Thelma with Zazu Pitts and put them in 17 slapstick comedy shorts, which lasted between 17 and 27 minutes. The first one was called Let's Do Things, and the last one in 1933 was One Track Minds. Zazu left the partnership and she was replaced with Patsy Kelly. Patsy and Thelma starred together in 21 shorts, the first being Beauty and the Bus, through to An All-American Toothache. Thelma played the straight actor, while Zazu and Patsy were the zany sidekicks. In 1931, Thelma starred in the movie Corsair. The film was directed by Roland West. He billed her as Alison Lloyd. He said he did this to remove the taint of comedy from his important drama. Hal Roach replied that Thelma's stage name would be Susan Dinkleberry for his comedies to remove the taint of drama. She carried on playing roles in comedy films and became regarded as a comedienne. She worked on movies with Joey Brown and the comedy duo Wheeler and Woolsey. She starred in Speak Easily with Buster Keaton. She was in the Marx Brothers movies Monkey Business in 1931 and Horse Feathers in 1932. Here she is with Chico Marx in the film Horse Feathers. She appeared in dramas too and was in the original 1931 version of The Maltese Falcon. In 1932, Thelma married Pat DeSico. He was an agent and movie producer, but he was also thought to be linked to organised crime and worked for gangster Lucky Luciano. He was abusive to Thelma and beat her up. She ended it and divorced him in 1934. Pat was the cousin of producer Albert R. Broccoli. He was the one who gave him his nickname of Cubby. Cubby Broccoli produced many of the James Bond films. In August 1934, Thelma ploughed her movie earnings into a beachside cafe she named Thelma Todd's Sidewalk Cafe, which was located at 17575 Pacific Coast Highway, Castellamare, Pacific Palisades, Los Angeles, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Hollywood stars, gangsters and politicians were customers at this swanky location. She opened the establishment with director Roland West, who had directed her in Corsair, and who was also her lover. Here he is in 1918. The third partner in the business was Roland's wife, silent film actress Jewel Carman. The ground floor was where the restaurant was. Then on the second floor there were 2 adjoining apartments with an ocean view that were separated with a sliding door. Thelma lived in one of the apartments and Roland and Jewel lived in the other. On the estate there was also a nightclub called Joya and a large villa called Castillo del Mar. On the morning of Monday the 16th of December 1935, Thelma's maid, May Whitehead, found Thelma's body in her brown 1934 Lincoln Phaeton convertible inside the garage above the cafe at 17531 Positano Road, Pacific Palisades. She was still dressed in her fancy party clothes of blue metallic sequined gown, mink coat, blue shoes, and the diamond jewellery that she had worn on the Saturday night, which was the 14th of December, when she attended a party hosted by Sidney Lupino and his daughter Ida at the Trocadero restaurant. The key was still in the ignition and the battery was dead. She had died from inhaling carbon monoxide. There was blood on her lip, which was thought to have happened when her head hit the steering wheel. She had consumed a high amount of alcohol. Here she is with Roland Young and Lily Demeter in the movie This Is the Night. So the various theories are: she only took one of her door keys as she was carrying a small handbag. Roland West locked up the cafe and Thelma's apartment that night and hadn't realised Thelma only had one of her keys instead of the 2 she needed for the 2 door locks. She couldn't get in, and so she went into the garage and turned the car engine on to keep warm, as that night was particularly cold. She was overcome from the fumes and accidentally died. Or it was suicide, but no note was found. The actress didn't seem to have any major problems in her life to cause her to go down that route. What about Roland's wife, Jewel Carman? She apparently didn't mind her husband's affair with Thelma. I'm not sure what Roland and Jewel's relationship was like, but apparently there wasn't any jealousy going on. There was a story that Thelma's mother, Alice Todd, had said to her friends she was going to build a large mansion. She was Thelma's sole heir. Where was she going to get the money? Then there were the abusive men in her life. At the party with Stanley and Ida Lupino, Thelma had bumped into her ex-husband, Pat DeSico. There was apparently a heated exchange between them, and they parted company. He didn't have any reason to hurt Thelma though, did he? They were divorced, so their association was over. He might have wanted to seek revenge because she had dared to divorce him, I suppose. A persistent rumour was that mobster Lucky Luciano was responsible for her death because she refused to let him use her cafe for underworld activities. They had been in a relationship. He was once again an abusive man and had beaten Thelma. He wanted to use the cafe for an illegal casino and Thelma said no. Imagine being in that position. A psychopathic gangster asks you to do something you don't want to do. He was also responsible for getting her hooked on amphetamines. Then there was Roland West, Thelma's married lover. People had a theory that Roland had killed Thelma on his yacht Joyita, which was named after his wife Jewel. Joyita is Spanish for little Jewel. Then he transferred her body to the garage. In 1955, the yacht, which now belonged to someone else, was found abandoned with all of its 25 passengers and crew missing. Writer Marvin J. Wolfe and Katherine Mader, who had been a deputy LA County District Attorney, decided to write a book, Fallen Angels, Chronicles of LA Crime and Mystery. They asked Hal Roach if they could interview him for the Thelma Todd section of the book. Eventually, Hal agreed to meet them. He said that on the 17th of December, which was the day after Thelma's body was discovered, 3 Los Angeles County Sheriff's detectives visited him. They said that after intense interrogation, Roland had confessed to killing Thelma. It turns out that Roland was very controlling and possessive. He had told Thelma she had to be back from the party by 2 a.m, and she had told him she could do what she wanted. Thelma arrived back at about 4 a.m. She had been driven back by her chauffeur, Ernest Peters, but refused his offer of walking her up to her apartment because she thought there would probably be an argument with Roland. She found the door locked and they had an argument through the door. He told her he didn't want her going to so many parties, and she informed him that she had been invited to Mrs. Wallace Ford's party later that day, and said she would go to that party right now. It was 4 a.m. She must have been tipsy. By the way, Wallace Ford was a stage actor and screen actor. She climbed the 270 steps to the garage. During her inquest, LAPD Captain Bruce Clark stated that Thelma's blue shoes were scuffed up a fair bit. Roland followed her. When he got to the garage, Thelma was already in the car. She started the engine and apparently he locked the garage door. He said he wanted to teach her a lesson and wasn't thinking about carbon monoxide. He left her locked in and went to bed. Maybe Thelma fell asleep as she'd been out all night and had been drinking. Later that day he went to the garage and discovered she was dead. He panicked and he closed the door but didn't lock it and went back to the cafe. Then May Whitehead found Thelma the following morning. Hal Roach told the detectives that Roland would just deny everything and there were no witnesses, so he wouldn't be convicted. Then followed a cover-up to protect the film industry's reputation. There had been various scandals and they didn't want any more. Various people testified to seeing or speaking to Thelma after the time she was thought to have died. Jewel, Roland's wife, said she had seen Thelma dressed in different clothes and with a man on Sunday night. Mrs. Wallace Ford said that Thelma had telephoned her on Sunday afternoon to say she would be attending her party. The police ruled it was an accidental death and that Thelma had died because she had been locked out of the apartment, went to the garage and had put the car's engine on to keep warm. Jewel and Roland divorced in 1938. After Thelma's death, Roland rarely worked. The bad publicity followed him and he became a bit of a recluse. In the 1950s he had a stroke and a nervous breakdown. He died in Santa Monica in 1952, aged 67. But before he died, he apparently confessed to Thelma's death to his close friend, Chester Morris. Chester starred with Thelma in the movie Corsair. Zazu Pitts' son, Don Gallery, said his mother had told him the same story about Roland locking Thelma in the garage. Here is Zazu Pitts with her husband, John E. Woodall. Thelma's last movie was the Laurel and Hardy comedy The Bohemian Girl, which was released in 1936. She had filmed all of her scenes, but Hal Roach reworked it because he was afraid of negative publicity. He did, however, keep in one of her scenes, which is a musical number where Thelma sings Heart of a Gypsy as a tribute to her. Thelma was cremated. When her mother, Alice Todd, died in 1969, her ashes were put in her casket and buried with her in Bellevue Cemetery, Woodland Street, Lawrence, Massachusetts. Their plot is in Section 19, Lot 5548, Grave 10. There isn't a copyright-free photo, so I'll put a link to the grave photo in the description box below the video. Here is Thelma in the Buster Keaton film Speak Easily. It was awful, wasn't it? She was only 29. Why didn't she turn the engine off? If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!